Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has vowed to fight until Armenia leaves the disputed Karabakh region. Azerbaijan's defense ministry has claimed to have killed at least 2,300 Armenian soldiers since the fighting started on Sunday. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron have called for an immediate ceasefire. India has registered nearly 1,200 COVID-19 deaths and almost 87,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The virus has claimed over 1,000 more lives in Brazil since yesterday, taking the death toll to over 143,000. In Pakistan, 5 people have died from the virus overnight, bringing the count to 6,484, with over 312,000 infected. While globally, coronavirus has claimed over 1 million lives and infected more than 33.8 million people so far. Pakistan's army says a 65-year-old woman has been wounded in yet another ceasefire violation by Indian troops along the line of control. In a statement, the military's media wing said Indian troops deliberately targeted the civilian population with automatic weapons and heavy mortars. On Tuesday, a soldier and a 15-year-old boy were martyred in unprovoked Indian firing. A US-led coalition forces base has been targeted with multiple rocket strikes near Iraq's northern Kurdistan region. Iraqi Kurdistan's counter-terrorism service said popular mobilization forces carried out the attack against the coalition. Earlier, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Khadimi pledged to protect foreign missions after the US threat to shut down its embassy in Baghdad. Details after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has vowed to fight until Armenia leaves the disputed Karabakh region. He said peace will be established in the region when the Armenian government fulfills their demand over the Karabakh claim. Azerbaijan's defense ministry has claimed to have killed at least 2,300 Armenian soldiers since the fighting started on Sunday. The two countries have rejected all calls for dialogue, including Russia's President Vladimir Putin's offer to mediate talks. Putin and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron also called for an immediate ceasefire. Macron also took a shot at Turkey, accusing it of reckless and dangerous statements backing Azerbaijan. Meanwhile, Iran says a rocket has landed on Iranian soil as part of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. State media said this is the 4th rocket that landed in the Khoda-Afarin border area. Now, Pakistan Army says a 65-year-old woman has been wounded in yet another ceasefire violation by Indian troops along the line of control. In a statement, the military's media wing, ISPR, said Indian troops deliberately targeted the civilian population with automatic weapons and heavy mortars. On Tuesday, a soldier and a 15-year-old boy were martyred in unprovoked Indian firing. The Foreign Office says Indian troops have committed over 2,300 ceasefire violations this year so far. Now, Afghanistan's chief peace negotiator Abdullah says he does not expect the results of the US presidential election to change the Afghan peace process. In an interview, Abdullah said neither Democrats nor the Republicans would want to see all the sacrifices or all the gains they have made in Afghanistan go in vain. He said as per his experiences and interactions with the US officials, the policy will not change. Abdullah also said the upcoming conference in Geneva in November will be important to build momentum at the negotiating table. Earlier in his visit to Pakistan, Abdullah met with President Arif Alvi, Prime Minister Imran Khan, as well as Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. The European Parliament has welcomed the intra-Afghan negotiations, calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in the country. In a joint statement, members of the European Parliament called for the talks to be inclusive and representative of all factions of the society. They said a comprehensive peace process is a precondition to end 4 decades of death and destruction in the country. The members said the talks are an opportunity to bring stability, security and peace to Afghanistan. The European Union Parliament assured its continuous solidarity and support to the Afghan people, government and the security forces. The statement said the European Parliament stands ready to facilitate and support the peace process. Moving on now, a US-led coalition forces base has been targeted with multiple rocket strikes near Iraq's northern Kurdistan region. Iraqi Kurdistan's counter-terrorism service said the US installed anti-missile air defense systems Patriot have thwarted 2 of the rockets. It said Popular Mobilization Forces carried out the attack against the coalition. However, in a statement, US-led coalition spokesman Colonel Wayne Marotto said the rocket fire did not strike the coalition base. He said there are no casualties or damage to report and the incident is under investigation. Earlier, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi pledged to protect foreign missions after the US threat to shut down its embassy in Baghdad. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack, which occurred hours after the pledges. Now, US House lawmakers have slammed the country's Defense Department over plans to withdraw thousands of troops from Germany. At a House Armed Service Committee hearing, bipartisan legislators grilled 2 senior Pentagon officials over the lack of details about the planned pullout. The panel pressed the officials about the time and the cost of withdrawal and the level of coordination with the European allies leading up to the final decision. Pentagon official James Anderson said the military did not have the required details and pledged to share the plans as they are developed. When asked if it was US President Donald Trump or the Pentagon who made the decision, Anderson said he was not aware of the conversations. Earlier in July, US announced plans to withdraw about 12,000 troops from Germany, accusing Berlin of failing to meet NATO's defense spending budget. Meanwhile, EU leaders are set to meet in Brussels for 2 days of discussions on tensions in the eastern Mediterranean. Earlier, European Council President Charles Michel sent a letter to EU leaders to outline the objectives of the summit. Michel said the main focus of the meeting will be on relations with Turkey on recent tensions in the Mediterranean. He added European Union-China relations and the poisoning of Alexei Navalny, the situation in Belarus and escalation in Armenian-Azerbaijan conflict will also be on the agenda. Leaders will also discuss the novel coronavirus pandemic and its effects on the European economy. The summit was initially planned for the 24th and 25th of September, but was postponed as President Michel was in quarantine. Now, India has registered nearly 1,200 COVID-19 deaths and almost 87,000 new infections in the last 24 hours. Globally, coronavirus has claimed over 1 million lives and infected more than 33.8 million people so far. More details in this report.
COVID-19 is showing no signs of slowing, forcing countries to choose between collapsing economies and restrictive measures to contain the second wave of the outbreak. India's coronavirus fatalities have jumped to over 6.3 million, with the death toll nearing 99,000. A recent report by the Indian Health Authority says more than 63 million people may have contracted COVID-19. This makes the tally about 10 times higher than the official count.
जिन्होंने अपनी समस्याओं को नजरअंदाज करते हुए
The death statistics coming forward tell us that majority of the cases are because of delayed response. It means that it came from those who ignored the initial symptoms and comorbidities. They took home remedies and didn't visit doctors. When the symptoms increased and they faced problems, they visited hospitals. This is very painful for both health workers and patients.
The fatal virus is now gaining a foothold in Canada's most populous province, Ontario, which is witnessing an exponential increase in locally transmitted cases. In America, states continue to report record new cases, fearing an explosion in COVID-19 cases as the influenza season approaches. In Latin America, the disease is claiming thousands of lives every day, with Brazil being hit the hardest as it reported over 1,000 more deaths today. With the government's refusal to implement restrictions, Sao Paulo state has reached out to a Chinese company for bulk buying of a prospect vaccine.
Our target is simple. So we will bring enough vaccine to Brazil. The most important, we also bring the affordable vaccine to be here and to benefit everyone in this country to against this COVID-19 pandemic.
The situation in Western Europe is getting worse by the day, with new infections back to peak pandemic levels in France. Spain has locked down Madrid again after it accounted for more than a third of the total cases diagnosed in the country over the past 2 weeks.
Now, the coronavirus pandemic continues to follow a flat curve in Pakistan as the recovery rate in the country remains steady at 95%. The Health Ministry says there are 8,825 active cases in the country as over 297,000 people have recovered. The ministry said 5 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, raising the death toll to 6,484. It said 543 more tested positive overnight, taking the number of total detected cases to over 312,000. The ministry said more than 137,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while over 99,000 have been reported in Punjab so far. In the federal capital, Islamabad, over 16,500 people have tested positive for the disease since the outbreak. The United Nations and world leaders have urged immediate action on biodiversity conservation at the UN summit. The participants at the Biodiversity Summit discuss how to set the goals of the post-2020 framework and the means to achieve it.
Leaders from more than 100 countries, regions and international organizations spoke at the summit. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has pledged to preserve the country's valued biodiversity and resist the effects of climate change. Khan said the country is collaborating with local communities to protect its ecological diversity. He said Pakistan is among the top 10 countries vulnerable to climate change, but his government is planting 10 billion trees to fight off the impending disaster. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for greater ambition to reverse biodiversity loss.
10 years ago, we secured commitments that should have protected our planet. We have largely failed. But where effort has been made, the benefits to our economies, human and planetary health are irrefutable. Nature is resilient, and it can recover if we ease our relentless assault.
While Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro vowed to protect the Amazon from international greed, French President Emmanuel Macron called biodiversity humans' life insurance. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson warned of the consequences of upsetting the balance of nature.
Upset the delicate balance of nature that's been achieved over tens of millions of years, and the consequences could be catastrophic for the economy, for climate, for food security, for public health, for all the sustainable development goals. Yet alongside the growing evidence of looming disaster, I also see growing evidence of desire to avert it.
President of 75th UN General Assembly Volker Bozkir said each year 13 million hectares of forests are lost and 1 million species are at risk of extinction. He said in the last 50 years, vertebrates have declined by 68%. Bozkir also warned if humans continue down this path, they will jeopardize their ability to fight diseases and extreme events.
Well, more news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back now. The raging wildfires in California have broken all the previous annual records. The fires have so far torched over 3.9 million acres since January, far exceeding any single year in the state's history. Scientists attribute the frequent and prolonged bouts of extreme heat, high winds and dry lightning to climate change. The Shasta County Sheriff said a badly burned evacuee of the Zog fire succumbed to his burns, marking the 30th fatality in the coastal state. Fire Protection Department said Zog fire is at 7% containment, while the Glass fire stands at just 2% amid irrepressible high winds. The 2020 season in the U.S. has so far killed 30 people in California since August 15, while 10 have died in Oregon and Washington. Now, Chinese are celebrating 71st National Day to commemorate the founding of the People's Republic of China. Events are being held in mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan for 8-day-long holidays.
China observes the 30th of September as Martyrs' Day to commemorate those who sacrificed their lives for independence. President Xi Jinping and other leaders attended a ceremony at Tiananmen Square to present flower baskets to deceased national heroes. At the same spot, Beijing held flag-raising ceremony to mark the National Day. Mao Zedong proclaimed the founding of China from Tiananmen Square on the 1st of October in 1949. People from all over the country have gathered at the square to express the feeling of patriotism. The 2020 National Day Gala was broadcast on channels and portals of China's Central Television. Divided into several chapters, the gala showed China's achievements, especially in epidemic prevention and control. Apart from the mainland, many actors and singers from Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan brought wonderful performance to audiences as well.
Now, Greece's most popular tourist site, the Acropolis, has been flooded in light to better illuminate the finer details of the ancient monuments on the hill. More about the new lighting system in this report.
An enhanced lighting system was set up to capture the architectural craft of all the temples at the historical site of Acropolis, from the columns of the Parthenon and Propylaea, the caryatids of the Erechtheion, as well as the walls, stones and surrounding areas of the site. Monuments that had been in darkness were lit up for the first time. Lighting designers spent 2 months studying the Acropolis to come up with the design, which uses lighting schemes of different shades and intensity.
The light of the 21st century now embraces the Acropolis. The inauguration of the new lighting of the Acropolis is a celebration that goes beyond borders and languages, because the values that were born here are universal.
The Acropolis is visited by millions of tourists each year. In classic antiquity, it was the hub of Athenian culture and represented the splendor and power of the ancient Greeks. Over the centuries, its monuments have withstood fires, pillaging, earthquakes, and the effects of climate change.
Now, Christian Dior has kicked off Paris Fashion Week with a socially distanced runway show. Models paraded around an art installation recalling Gothic-style stained glass windows to a live choir performance. More about the exquisite show in this report.
Fashion brands are hesitantly returning to the catwalk after holding off for many months due to the coronavirus pandemic. Paris Fashion Week will also include a mix of physical and digital events. The styles at the show contain nods to female figures or writers, including a couple of long, buttoned-up white shirts. The creative director of DIOR says the COVID-19 crisis also influenced the collection various ways.
That we have a style of life completely different from the past, because we have more private life, less social life. So our relationship also with the clothes is completely different, because I think that it could be more personal, more in relationship with our body, with our feelings.
Guests at the show wore face masks and were given temperature checks, with crowds limited to 300 rather than the usual 800 to 1,000. Some celebrities welcomed the more low-key nature of the show, where guests sat in a distance between them.
I find shows, when there isn't a social distance or there isn't masks to be like very overwhelming. So I actually feel like this new environment that we've created with more space and more respect for one another, I actually think that it's a much more pleasant way of viewing the shows and consuming art.
Meanwhile, an Extinction Rebellion protester crashed the runway with a banner. She left the scene without anyone challenging her, leaving some people confused over whether it was a stunt or part of the show. The show in Paris will run until the 6th of October.
Now, Japan's Tokyo Stock Exchange has halted trading due to a technical issue, while many major markets in the region are closed for holidays. In a press release, Japan Exchange Group said it is not certain when the trading will resume. The Japanese government has instructed the exchange to identify the cause of the system glitch. Meanwhile, Australia's ASX 200 has gained close to 1.5%. Markets in China, Hong Kong, South Korea and Taiwan are closed for holidays. Overall, the MSCI Asia ex-Japan index traded nearly 0.5% higher. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.